That's just a really good life lesson in general, that nothing comes easy, that if you want to do it, you're going to have to work for it. But when you work for it, people will come around and help and support you.
I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step.
Just let go.
Hitha Palepu is on the show today. She's quite a fascinating woman because she has her fingers in so many different things. She's the CEO of Row Pharmaceuticals. She's also an angel investor, and she has just done a lot of different things in a lot of different areas. So when I am trying to figure out what I'm going to read next, I usually go check out what Hitha's reading, because she just has a mind that is extremely diverse, and she's quite the curator and aggregator for things to read, things to consume, and I just love the way her brain works. So we dive into so many different topics in this episode. Hitha is, building her portfolio of female founders that she's investing in. And I happened to be at a dinner with her not too long ago in New York City. And to my left was one woman that she's invested in. And directly across from me was another. And then there's Hitha right there as well. And so it just made for a fascinating conversation to see that dynamic, but also to see the support and the genuine care and just I guess support is what I felt when I was around these women. Hitha also shares kind of her zigzag process of where she has been and how she's gotten to where she is today. She was a blogger for more than 10 years, and that was also a part of this kind of puzzle. And she's also a mother and spends a lot of time on Instagram sharing what she's learned and a lot about her life. So she's a really interesting follow as well. Are you ready for change? Or maybe you're already in a season of expansion. As we embrace this new decade, are you ready to take action on your own Why Not Now idea? Maybe that means starting the company, launching the podcast, writing the book, or doing more public speaking, injecting your why into what you are doing. At the end of the day, that is exactly what creates connection. And connections convert. My life work is to help guide women through this very stage in their life. I do this through the Renegade Brand Bootcamp. It truly is the career love of my life. The reason I love this program so much is because I'm able to create a mosaic, a collection of like-minded, like-hearted, driven women who come together to level up. They learn the renegade mentality directly from me, and I share everything I've learned over the past 20 years in business. It's equal parts education, collaboration, accountability, and community. We are accepting applications for our 2020 program. And you are welcome to go check everything out about the program at renegadebrandbootcamp.com. And as a very first step, just sign up for my 5-day email series. I uncover all of the questions about the bootcamp and help you understand if it's right for you. We've had some incredible women come through the program, and you will hear from them as well. You can check out the curriculum, the structure, the vibe, and everything in between. Many years ago, I went to Mark Cuban and asked him for investment advice. I thought I was going to get some real estate or stock market type of advice. Instead, he said, invest in yourself. Invest in your own growth. Invest in yourself. Bet on yourself. This is the best ROI you will ever find. If you're at that point where you are ready to take action, head to renegadebrandbootcamp.com. Just a heads up, the Renegade Brand Bootcamp dates for 2020 will be announced and open enrollment begins this week. So if you want first access to that info, head to renegadebrandbootcamp.com and sign up for the email newsletter. That's where it will be announced first. And I want to make sure you have first access. So there are limited spots, and I'm so excited for this program to be launching. It is the career love of my life. Just head to the website if you want to learn more, renegadebrandbootcamp.com. We tackle the most taboo topics on the Why Not Now show. Oftentimes, you're hearing guests share things they've never shared before. In the spirit of things we don't typically talk about, you should know that the Why Not Now show is supported by Poopery, the original before you go toilet spray. It's magic. My friends at Poopery have literally taken the smell out of you-know-what. This pure blend of essential oils stops bathroom odor before it begins. Visit poopery.com, and Why Not Now listeners get 20% off with code WHYNOTNOW. That's all one word. And you can hear the story about Poopery in our interview with founder Susie Batiste. That's Why Not Now, episode 28. Poopery is also available at Target. Hitha, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
It's so good to be here. I'm good. It's my last day of work for the year, so I'm very excited to be ending it on such an incredible way and chatting with you.
Well, I'm grateful to have your time, and as our listeners as well. Let's hop in. Can you tell me about a time when you had a big decision to make and you asked yourself, why not now? And we'll dissect that minute, day, hour, season, and just better understand how you navigated from idea to action.
Yes. So this exact moment was almost a little over a year ago to the day. I have been blogging on my blog for almost 10 years, and it's actually 10 years now, and never really took a break from it, maybe a month off when things were really crazy, but I've been consistently blogging at Hitha on the Go for a very long time. And it was right after Thanksgiving. I had just published a gift guide, and I had this thought of I need to get a post up about how we do holiday gifts, or I should get a post up about our holiday traditions, or I should get a post up to share this outfit, and I didn't want to do it. And even though blogging had been such a big part of my identity, I was burned out. My time I felt being drawn to other areas, the company I've been building with my father, obviously my son, who at the time was 3 and very mischievous and fun. And I just wanted to enjoy and savor this moment. I was pregnant with our second child, and I was exhausted. That was my why not now moment of why not just take a break and see what happens. And what I thought would be an actual short break and that I would return to the blog has actually been a realization of this was such an important phase of my life, but my life is going in a different way. And as an entrepreneur, as an investor, and in talking about that journey of my career more openly, as a mother, and wanting to create content that I was looking to consume, briefer, more succinct, less of a lift for me to produce, but then also less of a lift for people to consume. I wanted to go where people were versus trying to drag them to a property that was my own. And it really reshifted my content business in a significant way that has also been incredibly rewarding. My Instagram grew almost doubled in a single calendar year. My email list grew by 50% in the past year. And I'm having fun with creating content again that I really wasn't feeling that way and at the end of the day of my blog.
Wow. Oh my gosh, how relatable. I'm sure for so many people who are listening that what you just said, you were wanting to create content that you were looking to consume. And isn't it fascinating that it's a valid question that we have to ask ourselves? Like, would you follow yourself? Was a question I saw from one of our renegade women, our renegade brand boot campers. Ksenia asked the other day in a post, and she said, would you follow yourself? And it makes me think about what you just said too, of maybe, you had evolved and the content and your direction, and sometimes we do have to create space. So it sounds like you, and I want to get into the different buckets and areas of your life because you are doing so many different things, but it sounds like you really had to, did you stop kind of literally and then pause and see what was new to emerge? Or was it a gradual thing?
It was the former. I think I hadn't logged into my WordPress admin site for a month, but that was also the time that I started posting pictures on Instagram that were not perfect or with like all the hashtags that you're told to use. And it was very much pictures of me with no makeup, wearing like a caftan, and I had cupcakes bounced on my pregnant belly. And I was like, this is what Friday night looks like now. My 24-year-old self would be judging me so hard, and just very honest. And that got more engagement than ever. And that was my aha moment of, why have I been killing myself to produce content that didn't feel 100% me? But when I am 100% me, that seems to be what I like. That's definitely what I like to share. And that seems to be what people are responding to. And that's when I stopped trying to be like everybody else, growing their brand on the internet. And really, my phrase is abandon all Fs. I'm not going to curse on this podcast, but I abandoned all of them and I said, what do I have to lose? The people who don't like me, they can unfollow. And maybe I can get to know my community a little bit better by showing a little bit more of who I am. And that's when I really became open about, I am a person who does a lot of things, but I also am an unabashed Taco Bell fan. I watch the Philadelphia Eagles religiously. I am not dressed in jeans and a nice top most days. I'm in like fuzzy caftans and sweatpants and my hair at a top knot or wearing my glasses. And I'm not going to use the filters, or I'm not going to put on makeup just to talk into the camera for Instagram stories anymore, because that's not me. That's not me all the time. That is me sometimes.
It sounds like all of you started showing up. I mean, the well-roundedness of a person can't be seen through highly polished, captured, filtered Instagram posts sometimes that look like a grid out of the Martha Stewart magazine. But that's relatable and human, and I'm not surprised at all. And I encourage everyone to follow you too, because the value that you provide, Hitha, is legit. I've been off and on pretty fatigued, obviously, with social media, given what I've been doing over the last decade or so. And it's refreshing to learn so much, especially from your stories. So let's dip into these different buckets, because you are an angel investor. You're the CEO of pharma company that you run with your father. You're a mom. You are constantly creating content. Tell me a little bit about each and how it all comes together, why you choose to do it all. A CEO of a company is a big deal, right? That's got to take a decent amount of time and energy. And let's have you start wherever there, but kind of dipping into these different buckets.
I has to start with, I think, what women especially talk about is my mom. My mom was someone who never told me I had to pick just one thing. And she modeled doing the things that brought you joy, that you were passionate about, that were important, both for your own personal self as well as in terms of giving back. And so I don't really know anything different. When I was growing up and I said, Mom, I'd like to do this activity, there was very much how does this fit into your schedule? Why do you want to do it? And where have you researched where you're going to take the class, who's the teachers are, how much it costs? She made me work for it a bit, but if I did do the work, she was always happy to drive me to ballet or soccer or Indian classical dance or music classes. And I really appreciate that I had to own it, but she was always going to say yes if I demonstrated it enough. And I think that's just a really good life lesson in general, that nothing comes easy, that if you want to do it, you're going to have to work for it. But when you work for it, people will come around and help and support you. So I don't think I ever grew up with a notion that I had to just do one thing and my career was only going to be defined by a certain job, and that I could do whatever I wanted. And there was also never this notion of that's a girl's job, that's a boy's job. My parents let me play with Ninja Turtles and Barbies at the same time, and that were very careful to never use that kind of language. When I said I wanted to be a doctor, they were never like, you have to, no, boys are doctors, girls are nurses. I mean, we're also South Asian, so the expectation to be a doctor was also there as well. And I guess in college, I came home, and the deal I had made with my parents, for them, they offered to pay for university as long as I earn some kind of science or engineering or technical degree, because they rightfully said, you have been raised with a certain quality of life. College is an investment into your future, and we want to ensure that you can support the quality of life you've been accustomed to, with regards to us investing in your education. So no matter what, we will pay for whatever you want to study, but our rule is you'll have to earn some kind of STEM degree. So I started studying biochemistry. I wasn't very good at it, I'm going to admit. My GPA wasn't the best, but I also started taking history classes and loved it, and told my parents, I'm going to double major in history. And they said, great. Not knowing that the number of credits to earn a BS and a BA at my university was equivalent to 5 years of school that I somehow crammed into 4. But there was none of this, why aren't you just doing one thing? Or you should just really be focused on only your science classes. Like history makes no sense. There was none of that. It was always supportive. And that was a pivotal time in my life, I think, when a lot of people at 18, 19, when you're very still vulnerable to other people's opinions of what you should do, to just be supported and felt I had ownership over this choice, I think set the stage for a career that is incredibly multi-hyphenated. I don't just do one thing. And I think doing all of the things I do help me be a better leader, a better entrepreneur, and a better investor, and also a better mother, and vice versa. All these things I do professionally help me manage my home and spend time with my kids and prioritize things properly. So there was never any kind of sense from as long as I could remember that I had to only do one thing.
It's interesting. And for those either parents or potentially students, and also people who are looking to shift what they're doing now, when we get our degree or when we focus on where we're going to go with our education, you're such an example of you can really take it almost anywhere. I went to your LinkedIn. Obviously, we met in person once recently in New York City, and I just adored your energy and well-roundedness. And then when I went to look up to see what you studied, because I'm always interested, like, what did people study in school? When I saw biochemistry, I was like, interesting. And I'm sure some of it makes sense maybe working, with your full-time kind of day job, but all these other things like investing, and you would never, think of that out of the gate for someone who's going to get that degree, but it's so common for people to be shifting and from something that isn't the obvious anymore. And that's good. I'm sure you use elements of your education from biochemistry and or your experience on the job in all the other aspects. It's so much more democratized. Let's talk about some of your role. How did you get into investing? And I just have so many questions on this topic, but and I do want to circle back to what I'm going to refer to as your day job, because I think I've heard you refer to it that way.
I do refer to it that way, although I kind of do all the things during the day and all the things at night, and then I'm asleep. So it's an interconnected life. I got into investing by accident, which I think is how a lot of the things I've done that have worked out have happened. I had been a very big fan of the brand LaFleur from the moment they launched. They spoke to the style sensibility that I had and I wanted to have, and the utility in terms of beautifully polished, thoughtfully designed workwear that wasn't a very basic black dress or a very basic business suit. And I think I ordered 2 dresses the day they launched. I discovered them from a Pure Wow newsletter ad. And then also emailed their info at LaFleur email to say, be just fangirl a bit and tell them how much I'd been waiting for a brand like this to exist. I'm so grateful for you. Can I meet you and get to know you guys a little better? And their CEO and founder, he reached back out to me and said, absolutely. And we developed a really strong friendship when they launched their ambassador program. I was one of their first ambassadors. And then a couple years had passed and we were catching up over coffee and we were talking about negotiating. And at that time, I was vice president of business development at my father's second company he ever started and overseeing all of the out-licensing of our portfolio and making pharma deals that way. And negotiating was my job. It's not part of it, my job. It really was the job. So Sarah and I were talking about how we both approach negotiation. And then I kind of responded, wait, why are we talking about negotiation? Like, what's going on with MM? And she goes, we're raising our first round. And I didn't know anything other than, wait, I have some money. I think I'm legally allowed to invest. Can I invest? Can I write you a check? And she took a step back. She goes, you would? And I said, yes. But let me check with lawyers and my bank and make sure I can actually do this. And of course, I go, I'm sure my husband wants to speak to you too. We do make all our financial decisions together. So I want to loop him in and introduce him to you. We got the all clear that, yes, we can invest, and they were our first investment. And it was because I was a fan and a friend of the brand first. And then when I saw what they were doing, what they wanted to do, and how I'd seen Sarah really grow into a leader that could not just scale this brand, but manage it, for the long haul. And I wanted to be a part of that. In more than just being a customer or an evangelist or someone who blogged about the brand. So that was my first investment. And slowly, I'm really lucky that in New York City, I think the entrepreneurial climate for female founders especially is outstanding. But friends started telling me about business ideas, and some didn't require investing, but I was like, hey, if I want help looking over a deck, you want to chat through things, let me know, I'm always here for you. And then some said, we're raising our first round. That's when my husband and I started saying, well, let's start putting some more money in this space. This is fun for us. And it really is. So now we've invested in over 10 companies over the past 5 years. I am also an advisor to about 5 more. And those, responsibilities and the time I spend sort of ebb and flow with each company. But it's incredibly fun for me to bring my experience of operating businesses, developing things that digitally that have gone viral, storytelling, and thinking through new opportunities. That has just been so exciting and so much fun. And I absolutely love it.
You can tell too. That's what I love. It really comes through. That energy shines through in your communication in every medium. And, the evening that we met, we were at a dinner in New York City for the Riveter Summit the night before. Amy Nelson was kind enough to invite a bunch of women who were speaking the next day. And next to me on my left, I had 2 people right next to me that you had invested in. And then you were over right next to them. And it just was kind of interesting how here we've got a little sliver of your portfolio right there in a Hey Mama and Messy FM. And it was just rad that you and there might have been others there that night, I'm not sure, but that here you were, in the same circle, helping one another. You just have such a critical role, I'm sure, in helping guide and lead by example as well. And it's cool to hear your story of how it came from an info at email, which is so cool. We talk about reach out to people. And by the way, I also appreciate you just shared the outreach letter that you received when you were being pitched to invest in Messy FM, which is a podcasting platform. And just how cool it is that you were willing to share an example of what a really good outreach communication is.
And Molly was very kind. I reached out to her first and I said, hey, may I share it? I'll block off, obviously, the confidential details. But to me, that was just such a master class in how to pitch someone very thoughtfully. So I had never met Molly. I think we might have followed each other on Twitter because I had listened to her Two Inboxes podcast when she was still with Forbes. And of course, it was such a thoughtful email that felt personal, that showed why she wanted me, not just to write because went beyond money. It's, I want you because I respect what you've done here. And this is where I think you can help grow this business. And she got me emotionally invested from that second paragraph onwards. And of course, she wrote the book, Reach Out, because she is really the queen of it. But similarly, that's kind of how most of our investments have come through. With another one, Girls Night In, run by Alicia Ramos, I was a fan of the newsletter, and Alicia and I, connected over social media, kind of started chatting through Instagram. She had invited me to do a takeover on their Instagram story one evening. I had shared a number of the things they had written on my 5 Smart Reads. And then finally, I happened to be in DC visit for an event, and we got together live, and she told me that she was preparing a raise. And I immediately said, wait, hold up. I want to see your deck. How much are you raising? What's the minimum check size? How can I help you in addition to the funds? And it was one of those, again, you're going to have to talk to my husband as well because we make these decisions together. However, I'm so impressed by what you've built, just you, with a very modest amount of money, and how can I get involved? And now it's really fun when my founders are introducing me to their founder friends as this is an investor who's brought us a ton of value. And I think you would be you should talk to them because it's not just someone writing you a check. It's someone who's going to really help you with the business. That's how I want to invest in companies. I want to actually help them grow, help them achieve their dreams and achieve certain milestones, and focus on building something impactful. And of course, when you do that, the return will come, but I'm not so hyper-focused on the immediate financial return. That's not the kind of investor I am. And I think it's fun to think about how do we build something from, my husband and I investing together into a new kind of fund that offers different types of access to capital to different founders with this kind of coaching and mentoring to just invest in more women, get women investing more, and to tip really the scale of money and power being so heavily leaned towards men and making it a little bit more of an equal playing field.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Hi, everyone. If you are digging this podcast, please do us a favor and subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. It just takes a moment and it means a ton to us. Also, after recording more than 100 episodes, I've created a bit of a cheat sheet on the top 5 things I've learned from renegades and how they get from idea to action, from dreaming to doing. I will email you the downloadable PDF when you subscribe to my newsletter. Just head to amyjomartin.com and click on Connect with Me. As someone who is probably pitched pretty often and you're reviewing many different deals, what's a little bit of advice that you have for women or men out there who are looking to raise money? And it could be tactical, it could be kind of more philosophical, but you see so much. What are you looking for?
I'm so sector agnostic. It's what I look for is product market fit? Are you really solving a problem here, or is this a nice to have business? And strong product market fit, your unit economics make sense. Like, can you reliably make money doing this? Are you earning more than you are spending? Where are you spending that money? And what are the opportunities to diversify the way you generate revenue in your space and maybe in other spaces? Like, can this be replicated for a different sector or a different industry? I care a lot about the founders. Running a company is really, really hard, and more things are going to go wrong than go right. How do you take care of yourself? How have you overcome challenges in the past? How long have you been doing this on your own before you started bringing in a team and then, raising the capital? Are you raising capital for the right reasons? How are you plan on using that? What is the goal and the goals and the targets you want to hit in order to grow the business with this money? And then there's also those are all very kind of typical investor metrics, but there's also this sense of, do I like you? Am I rooting for you? Am I already a fan of what you've built, or will I become a fan because I just didn't know about it earlier? Like, what is your role, I think, and what do you see your work is in making the world a better place in some kind of capacity? Because I think that is what drives the businesses I love, is there is this underlying intent and mission to do good. And I can't quantify it and I can't necessarily describe who has it and who's not. It's very much a feeling, and it's a very much gut instinct.
I appreciate you sharing that. And I think one of the big questions we hear, especially a lot of people listening, are considering a shift and maybe asking themselves, do I need to raise money or not? Or can I bootstrap this? What's the time frame? How do you help founders determine that? And have you turned people away? Have you said before, I don't think you need to be raising money. I think you could do this without. Have you had any situations like that?
Yes, I have. And, I get pitched a lot. Some are just not a fit for me in terms of it's either too close or too similar to a company I've already invested in. And I don't like to put too many eggs in a single basket, so to say. Other times, it really is what you built is interesting as like a customer, but I don't see a path to really scaling this and making the numbers work long term. And that's fine for certain businesses. Some you can run as a small business and continue to build and grow off of your net profit. And if it's a healthy net profit and you want to be able to own it and do what you personally can manage or can manage with a small team, that's fine. There is a founder up in Toronto who I'm admire and have become friends with over the internet, of course, named Tia Buva. And she created these sari petticoats that's kind of like Spanx, and like has made sari wearing such a joy for me and so many women, because I no longer am tying this like stiff cotton thread around my waist and kind of suffocating myself. And I'm no longer worried about my sari completely slipping away or falling off me. And she has talked often about how she doesn't want to build a business that requires her to raise capital. She's very content to build an incredibly profitable, incredibly successful business in an organic way. And I wish we celebrated that as much as we celebrate these huge raises or these huge exits. I think founders who are incredibly creative and who also understand that control is sometimes more powerful than capital of your own company should be celebrated and should be on the cover of a lot of these magazines as well. So she's one who every time she talks about, oh no, I don't need to raise capital. That's not the kind of business I'm building. I always message her to say, I am so proud and I want to tell you like how much I admire this and what you've built and you being so clear in your vision.
Oh, I'm so glad that you said that. I agree. I do think they should be celebrated as well. And sometimes the romanticism around raising and investment we can just get caught up in it. And sometimes it's like, well, wait, do you really need that? How much are you giving away? And sometimes the answer is yes, but we do tend to celebrate the big valuations more than that have really come from a big amount of fundraising versus the bootstrapping. And so, okay, switching gears for a minute, let's touch on your day job because we can't ignore it. You're the CEO of a pharma company.
Yes, Roche and Pharmaceuticals.
Yes, and let's talk about how this all fits in. And you're doing some very innovative things as well, I understand. So your father's the founder. And just, tell me a little bit more about, I guess the innovation side is what I'm so fascinated with, knowing that you're working on some pretty incredible things. But also, this is just, I'm sure it's a key fit into the puzzle, given you're learning so much as a leader as well.
Yes. Well, again, I think it starts with childhood. As a child, I was always fascinated by what my father did because he has a PhD, so he's a doctor, but he wasn't the doctor I went to when I was sick. And he did a very interesting thing with if I ever misbehaved or did something I wasn't supposed to do, I would never get grounded or have things taken away from me. I handed him the medical dictionary. He'd pick 10 words and I'd had to write a report linking all of these 10 seemingly random words together.
Wow.
Which is incredibly creative and I'm going to be using for my own boys once they can write and read. That coupled with me just being curious and him doing a really good thing in terms of never talking down to me or saying, oh, you wouldn't understand, you're just a child. He did try to break down the science of what he was working on in a way that my 8-year-old, 9-year-old brain could understand. I don't know if you read these books when you were a kid. Lerlin McDaniel wrote these series of young adult novels where all these kids have life-threatening diseases. So someone would have leukemia, someone would have had a heart transplant. It was really morbid for a 12-year-old to be reading. But these were what I was reading. So by the time that coupled with this medical dictionary, exercise of my father's, I knew more about like stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma than most people do and was very just fascinated by the mechanism of action of disease and how we treat them and pestering him and asking him more questions about it because at the time he was developing a couple cancer drugs at the major pharma he was at. Fast forward to when I'm 24, I was at Cisco Systems out of college, and I happened to end up on the global pharma team. So big pharmas were my clients. But if you're selling switches and routers and IP telephones, you could be any other vendor. It didn't matter to them. What I was doing wasn't necessarily driving progress in healthcare. It was supporting their tech needs. And I was gravitating toward more what my father was working on at the time. He had co-founded Cytos, a company with his business partner, Joe Bohan, where they were identifying products that had really poor formulations that were all in the specialty hospital space. So mostly injectable products, a lot of cancer drugs, that came in a 2-vial unit. He was like, oh, I could develop a 1-vial version of this and prevent a hospital pharmacist to having to fully gown up before reconstituting and preparing the drug for administration. They had successfully licensed 2 products that had been launched by 2009, and they were starting to take on more projects, take on more partners, and needed some extra support. So they asked me to join the company, took a pay cut, had to completely relearn the business, but I did that, and it was the best decision I ever made. And I was actually deciding of which should my why not now moment be, but that's the second one because I've gained so much by saying yes to working with my father, not just professionally, but also personally. I find incredible fulfillment that what we're doing and what we're working on is designed to help save people's lives or treat people in their most vulnerable moments. And because we're looking at improving existing drugs, this isn't something that's going to be insanely expensive or something that most people can't afford. I don't want to contribute to that our drugs be the reason some people are bankrupt as well as sick. So that's been very, very important to us. I learned more about a world I thought I knew, but I knew nothing about, and have gotten to play a small part of it. And that's really been important to me. I'm deeply, deeply passionate about healthcare, pharma's role in it, and what we can do differently. And so when my father started Roche Pharmaceuticals, he did the very sneaky thing of also giving me 40% of the company and then telling me it was up to me to decide if this was 40% of something big or 40% of something small.
Smart.
So,
Love it.
and at the time, I was already kind of helping out. I was updating their decks and, rewriting it, telling them you should reach out to these people or these people, and then slowly just got sucked back in. And that it was the time Roche Pharma was really starting to pick up with regards to our fundraising activities and a lot of commercial strategy work that I had to kind of put the blog to rest, because I said, what is a better return on investment with my time and with my energy? And for me, it wasn't just that I do love to create content, but I loved spending time with my dad to develop a drug that I think can shift how we approach drug development in this country in a really big way more. And I picked that, and I haven't regretted it for a second. But it's also good that I had made so many investments up to that point. We're raising our Series A right now, and I know that in fundraising as a founder or an entrepreneur, it's just as important for us to feel good about whose checks we accept and who's going to support us. That if I had done that, even 2 years prior, I don't think I would have had that approach and that being so top of mind to me. Do I like these people? Do I trust these people? Are these people going to provide value?
I imagine it's kind of fun being on the other side of the fence now too. You're on both, but invaluable experience. And I know you can't talk too much about it, but there's an area of innovation that you're focused on with the company that sounds pretty incredible. Can you just top line it? Okay.
Yes, we are developing an injectable presentation of one of the most common oral drugs. And why this is important is that this drug can be delivered significantly work faster and also work in a much more consistent manner among all patients, versus oral drugs take longer for the therapeutic action to take effect. They vary in absorption levels wildly and absorption rates from body to body. And when you consider, hospital type interventions, especially in the emergency department or during surgery, every second does matter in that case. So it's being able to take something that exists that we know to be safe and improve it, and hopefully be able to improve lives and medical care in that specific space without increasing costs tremendously so.
Wow. Oh my goodness. So the question that keeps coming to mind next is, you are an avid reader of all types of news, content, books. How do you decide what to read, and where do you get your news?
I'm very lucky to have a lot of other avid reader friends who help aggregate my to-be read list. I also now, this is a new development this year, I'm okay with not finishing a book. Like if I'm not into it, I now abandon books, and there's an acronym for it on Goodreads. It's DNR or DNF, did not finish. So I've DNF'd quite a few books this year that I said, I'm not feeling this, and that's okay. So between my Bookstagram community on Instagram, people on Twitter who I follow that always have great recommendations, authors who I just genuinely love and kind of keep an alert out for whenever they have a new book. That's kind of how I curate my book reading list. The second is on news. There's a few outlets that I've come to appreciate their own curation and also creation of news content. So I read newsletters from Axios and Fortune and The Dispatch and Vox almost every single day. I also love The Lily from Washington Post. And the Post is probably my go-to mainstream newspaper or major newspaper. Also, having grown up in Philly, I have a subscription to the Inquirer just so I can stay in touch with what's happening back home. And I'll scan the BBC, Guardian, and Times of India as well.
Amazing. And you do that on your phone usually or on the desktop, or do you have any kind of app that curate or that aggregates?
The newsletter reading and the website viewing is usually on my phone. So I try to use, 5 minutes I'm waiting in line or on the subway as my news catch-up time.
Gotcha. I always find it fascinating and you do, what is it called on Instagram where the five smart reads, is that right?
5 smart reads, yes.
Right, which I appreciate once again, because it's as much time as we spend, we is a very general way of saying this, okay, just me, as much time as I spend on Instagram, it's refreshing to get that type of content as well. So especially from not only the content, but getting a point of view along with it. So thank you for your 5 smart reads. And everybody should follow for sure. And your Instagram handle is your name, right? So
yes.
So it's just at HITHAPALEPU.
Yes.
Correct.
And if you go to my link in bio, you can also subscribe to the weekly newsletter. So I send out all 25 reads from the week, as well as what books I'm reading at the moment and things I'm loving that are making my life a little bit easier or happier.
Awesome. Awesome. As we're kind of wrapping up here, what's one lesson you find yourself learning over and over, Hitha?
How much I don't know. And now it's how wonderful that is. Like how much I have so much more to learn still. And that's exciting. I'm excited by it. Not knowing the answer and being secure and seeing the strength and admitting that has definitely been a lesson I've learned, I think, really in my 30s and embraced. So that's been wonderful.
Oh, that's good. That's a good one. I love it. And what are you reading right now?
I am between books right now. I just got a whole bunch in from some publishing friends. So I'm trying to decide if I go all in on this. It's a tome. It's about 1,300 pages, a book called Pharma, and it's coming out from Avid Reader Press next year, and it's about the pharma industry. Or if I let myself go on vacation mode and turn my brain off a bit and read One Day in December, which has kind of been billed as Love Actually in novel form, which sounds kind of perfect right now. So I think I'm going to do that. And then I also it's a YA title called One of Us is Lying, and the sequel that's coming out next year. And I feel like maybe I'll read, some YA thrillers can also be fun to just indulge in and also turn your brain off and relax for a bit.
Yes, which we do have to do every once in a while, if not more often than not. And just some advice to your younger self, any age that comes to mind, what would you tell young Hitha?
Stop buying going out tops. You're never going to wear them again.
Yep. College clubbing days for me, same.
College clubbing days. And now all I do is wear sweatshirts and leggings, and I'm infinitely more comfortable and happier for it. I think the other thing I would remind my younger self to do is to not be in such a hurry for life to pass by. Everything from a timing perspective does happen for a reason, but I look back on my 20s and I am really glad that even though there were times I felt incredibly lost or incredibly insecure that I should be so much further along, I also developed some incredible friendships. I had a lot of fun. And, now that my idea of a great Friday night is being asleep by 10 o'clock, that those Friday nights where I went out at 10 o'clock to go dancing with a group of girlfriends and ended up at the diner at 2 a.m. rehashing the evening, those were also really fun too. And I'm glad I had those memories. I don't look back and regret anything, except for how much money I spent on going out tops.
Exactly.
That's the only regret.
Exactly. Before all the apps came out that you could just resell them right away or even rent the runway and stuff. Oh, gosh.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Hitha, for your time and sharing. I mean, we just kind of dabbled. We could have gone deeper into so many different areas, but that's what I love about you. You're a Renaissance woman and a renegade Renaissance woman nonetheless. So thank you, and we'll be sure to be following along and just watching you continue on your journey.
Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time. And until then, why not now?